Welcome to the Volunteer and Combination Officer section weekly webinar series. This week, we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as well as to the participants' heart, called Advanced Leadership Training for Volunteer Firefighters. For volunteers, we all know that the volunteer fire staff departments will be sustained with highly effective and competent leadership. We know the success is dependent upon the leadership. Tom Brady would not have won 7 Super Bowl titles without a coach, a general manager, and somebody to do all those other things. So the best people in the world still have to have a leader. And so what we've done today is we have found that this organization, Sean Stokes is heading it up today to talk about advanced volunteer leadership. So before I turn it over to Sean, I got a couple political things to take care of here. And, this is normal audio, voice over IP technology. And if we will monitor the chat session, the question and answers. And if there are any handouts, those will be uploaded after the presentation. If you think of something that you'd like for them, they talk about something that you'd like to have a copy of, again, they can be maybe uploaded into the handout section. The VCOS does weekly webinars. As I said, here's the schedule for this month. We have one coming up on the 18th next week, as well as the 25th. I hope that you sign up for them regularly. I do know that we have several people from around the world who sign up every week. So glad to see them here as well. Fire Rescue International is coming up in Dallas. I hope you're registered for that. If not, get registered. But more importantly to at least Sean Stokes and I today is VCOS Symposium in the Sun. We do that in November, Clearwater, Florida, on the beach at a little resort. And we hope that you will come and attend with that. Sign up early because it's sold out for like the last 8 years. The Technology Summit coming up in December. We all have got to get into technology. And so I encourage you to sign up for that and attend that in December. So with that, Sean Stokes is our head instructor for today. Sean is a member of the VCOS Board of Directors, Fire Chief at Dunn Loring Volunteer Fire Department. And with that, Sean, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. And thank you for everybody that's logged in so far. Glad to have the group with us here today, and just want to talk and give some perspective on a program that we put together that I think raises some questions and provides some potential for opportunity for volunteers across the country to be able to do themselves. One question that I'm going to ask, I just want you to be thinking about throughout the presentation is, how did you learn to become a leader? You hear, leaders are born, natural born leader. No, it comes from somewhere. Okay. It comes from our upbringing. It comes from the people that are our mentors, that make us better. Think about how you got to the point of being in leadership. So who are we? Well, we are 4 volunteers who want to make a difference, both locally and beyond. Collectively, we're part of 2 very large metro fire departments, both Fairfax and Loudoun counties. Our experience levels rate from 25 plus years to 2 years. And we are 4 people who represent the team of members that made this class that you're going to hear about happen. We had a large cadre of folks that helped to make this come together. We're just the 4 that you're getting to meet today. We are all part of the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Association, countywide C3 that represents the 12 independent partner volunteer departments that are part of Fairfax County Fire and Rescue. The 3 of us, Allie, Maria, and I, serve on the board of the association. We come from a non-traditional volunteering model. It's a legacy from the time when we weren't big enough to need any career staff. I hired our first drivers in 1949. We are a supplemental force multiplier. We are the folks that come out of the woodwork when there are big events. We are the folks that put up additional resources. Who doesn't want more transport units? We are the folks that backfill for drills and provide minimum staffing when there is a need for that. We also, with that being part of these large fire departments, we have a lot of unique opportunities. One of the folks that were very instrumental to pulling this off, a gentleman by the name of Frank Pappas from Greater Springfield. He's part of Virginia Task Force 1. He's on our urban search and rescue team, one of 2 teams that gets sent out internationally. As a volunteer, he could be launched within it. He could get an hour's notice and be launched here in a couple hours to a disaster anywhere in the world. Myself and several other volunteers are part of the statewide communications cache. It's a non-traditional system, but it also gives us a lot of opportunity to do things and to have interactions at a level that most volunteers don't ever get that opportunity to. I share all of that. Don't focus on the Fantasyland factor. I talk all the time about, oh, we live in Fantasyland, and we do. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're in a town of 1,500 and 2.3 square miles, if you've got 9,000 in 700 square miles in your fire district, or you're part of a fire department that's protecting 1.2 million residents over 400 square miles. Our problems and our challenges and our advantages are the same. It's just a matter of scope and scale. And so keep that in mind when you hear about the volunteer leadership program and some of the ideas. Just consider that you have, you don't have to do it on the scale that we're doing it here. You can do it in any number of ways that will work within the scope and scale of your agency. So how did we get started? We got started because the association wrote a Safer R&R grant, a 3-year grant for you see there, right at $367,000. We had done one in 2009, got us our LOSAP program. It was a good recruiting program. We said it's time to do it again. We wrote it with a focus on radio advertising, social media, and leadership training. And notice the air quotes on the leadership training. It's important. It'll come back. That award went active in November of 2019, and then the world shut down. We effectively lost the first 2 years of the 3-year program. We also, in that, a combination of changes from COVID, changes in people commuting, combined with just change in society, the radio ads that we planned to do were not as effective, not effective at all, really. So we went and modified the agreement, changed the focus on the recruiting piece to an online media and increase on social media, which we saw great success with. But then we still had this leadership training piece, and we had more money sitting there than we anticipated. And that led to what I refer to as the conversation. We will come back to a little bit more of the conversation because that started because I called Justin Green and said, hey, I got an idea. And he probably regrets picking up his phone that afternoon. But with that, I will introduce Justin Green, who is a deputy chief with Loudoun County Fire Rescue. He is also a volunteer with Great Falls VFD in Fairfax County. And he's going to talk a little bit about the history of where this came from. And we're going to tag team on just what the conversation entailed. Justin?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. So Sean's phone call really kind of spurred a lot of thought on an exciting thought about where we could go with this, because Sean knew a little bit of background that I'm about to describe. So in about the 2008 timeframe, the Virginia Fire Chiefs Association had a strong desire to present a program that covered what we often refer to as the soft skills of leadership. Much training in a lot of departments, both career, volunteer, combination, about the SOPs, about tactics. Tactics is very well covered in a lot of the programs that are already out there, a lot of fully developed curriculum. But there's very little out there about how to talk to someone, how to have a courageous conversation. So they put together a program that was week-long, residential at the University of Richmond, that covered that. It was a didactic series of lectures, but then also had a scenario component, which we'll come to again when we talk about LDI and then VLP. So the one factor about the VFOA, or Virginia Fire Officer Academy, as it was called or is called, is that there were only space for at most two members from any department in the Commonwealth. So with a program that capped out around 45, there was a throughput issue. In 2012, the Northern Virginia Fire Chiefs, which is a non-governmental organization of the representative fire chiefs from the 14, I believe, NOVA fire departments, really expressed a strong desire to have that program about the soft skills of leadership in the Northern Virginia area because of the demand for that training for the members in the combination departments up here. So that was what in 2012 was called the Northern Virginia edition of the Virginia Fire Officer Academy. Based on that success in 2013, the NOVA Chiefs supported the development of the Northern Virginia Fire and Rescue Leadership Development Institute, which is a long way of just saying LDI. So the LDI started in 2013 with a class of about 40, and it was focused on the company officer, the initial about to be promoted or on the list or prospective company officer. While it was focused mostly on the career systems in Northern Virginia, it was not exclusive. And there were several members of combination system volunteers that participated in the LDI from there. So in 2013 and 2014, we were resident at the George Mason University in Fairfax. And then in 2015, we moved to a rustic 4-H camp in a Western Virginia county. And that also was concurrent with the addition of the LDI Command Officer Program. Smaller cohort, around 15 participants, that was focused on that initial command officer. In 2017, the Virginia Fire Chiefs, actually seeing probably some of the success of the command officer program, created the Virginia Chief Officer Academy, similar program. And the LDI has grown from there. There are some other outgrowths that have occurred this year that we won't get into today. But the LDI today is a week-long residential program that brings instructors from inside, but also outside the fire service to present topics of leadership. But the real core of the program is the end days that have very robust, well-developed scenarios where students are able to put into practice those tenets of leadership that they've learned in the preceding days immediately. And they can practice in a no-fault environment and get instantaneous feedback from the facilitators. A very robust group of role players and facilitators that make that scenario-based training very realistic and very valuable to the participants. So what did we learn from that? We recognized that there were some core tenets that could be applied to a volunteer in a volunteer system, or really anybody, not necessarily isolated to the fire service. It's really in how you talk to people. So we conducted a focus group from representative stakeholders in the combination system here in Fairfax and Loudoun County. We talked to volunteer association leaders. We talked to new volunteers. We talked to career staff to get different perspectives on what are the core components of leadership that are important for volunteers to learn about. And it wasn't surprising that it was a lot of stuff that was covered in the LDI as well. So what mostly took place was just tailoring those particular topics, but also mostly the scenarios to the volunteer experience. So that's where the background led to Sean calling me and asking me, "Hey, I've got an idea."
So I had never attended either VFOA or LDI, but certainly knew a lot about it. I knew that there was this curriculum there that existed. We liked the concept, and we had volunteers, as Justin said, that had attended the state program, had attended LDI. They'd come back and they loved it. But what was but one of the big challenges was, how do you make it fit into a schedule that will work for volunteers? Even aggressively, the week-long class just isn't real. Most people don't have the ability to take that time off and do that. As Justin said, the curriculum was there. Modifying it to volunteer-centric topics was not difficult. The scenarios were there. You're not necessarily dealing with employees, but your volunteers quasi are employees. You have some of the same challenges, but sometimes in a very different environment. So we wanted to look at that. Then the question became, who are the right people to bring in? Were the folks that were teaching LDI the same ones? Were there other folks that we wanted to look at? Fortunately, Justin and I had have a pretty big Rolodex each. I worked at the IAFC for 14 years. Justin and I have worked together. He's been on committees with the IAFC and obviously through this program and throughout the Commonwealth. And so we knew a lot of the same people, but we also knew some different people. So that made it easy for us. But something to consider in your own departments, in your own communities is, who do you know? Okay. I guarantee you that some really smart people. And that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about this is, who do you have that is local or regional that really stands out, that can get you to the point that you're trying to get to? So, we were looking for a mix of volunteer, career, policy, and operations. We've got some examples up there on the slide. Just anything from a former volunteer that's doing national policy work at a very high level. We had career captains from the fire and rescue department. We had one of our neighboring metro, the chief of department, that started as a volunteer and ran a state chiefs association before coming to Virginia. I mean, we had a really good mix of folks. And Justin, I don't know if you want to say anything more about the Rolodex and that mix that we were looking for.
Yeah, I think one of the lessons that we did learn in the LDI that we transferred into the VLP is that it's hard to be a prophet in your own land, as they say. So looking inside your department can be helpful, but I think it's really important to look regionally, both in the fire service and outside the fire service. From the beginning, the LDI and then the VLP included folks that were not in the fire service. And those perspectives are important because it's a fresh set of eyes dealing with the same problems. So you have that Rolodex, but don't isolate it to the fire service. Look outside as well.
Absolutely. Justin, you want to talk just a little bit more about how we kind of developed it and the schedule piece, and then Maria will talk to the pilots and kind of what we learned in some of our happy accidents.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we did that stakeholder survey. Really, they identified, not shocking to anyone on this call, I'm sure, that communication was the big focus. And one of the things that we also identified based on the experience from the LDI is that one of the biggest benefits of the LDI that's not documented, it's not really intentional, is that the networking that occurs between meals, after events, in the evenings. That residential format was key. But what we struggled with is, how do we do that and make it achievable for the volunteer? So we settled on a block of instruction. Each weekend had a theme. And we did 2 weekends, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, a Friday evening starting around 5 o'clock, is when the students arrived, and then we did all day Sunday and most of the day on Sunday. So breaking that up with a week break in between seemed to be, well, I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but at the outset, probably the best idea that we came up with at the time. So that's what led to the development of the schedule. And then and one thing before I forget is that one of the things that we did learn in creating the schedule is to be real intentional about the blocks of instruction. 4-hour blocks of time on a topic don't seem to work very well or resonate with anyone, regardless of their background. So what we've tried to work towards, and we still have work to do, is a block of instruction followed by immediately putting into practice in some scenarios. So that's probably a future thing that we are looking towards, that I would recommend for anybody doing a program. The location part right there is that has been a struggle throughout the entire existence of quite probably the VFOA and the LDI. But residential is key. There is very frequently pushback and commentary from students, whether they're LDI, VLP, whatever, before the program, of why do I have to spend the night? And we get through that. We message the importance of it, but it's really after the fact, and perhaps Allie might get into this in a little bit, that they see the benefit. It's the hallway conversations. It's the conversations in whatever establishment may be nearby that really form the group into a cohesive unit, and that's where the real learning occurs. Yes, the scenarios are awesome, and they're the real meat and potatoes, but it's the connections that you make in the program with your fellow participants that really carry forward beyond the program. So residential is key, and if the facility that you have this program at, like a hotel, has a lot of those logistics taken care of, like a dining facility where they can have meals together, that's even more important. So.
Awesome. And I do think that getting the folks out of the firehouse is very important, and not having those distractions, because I think, as we all know, it doesn't matter how much you try to disconnect. If the folks know that you're in the building, they will find you and they will come and ask you questions. So Maria Monroy Osorio is our operations captain at Dunloring. She's been with us 4 years now, I guess. Yep. And I had asked her and had brought her into the program as a how do I say this, a set of critically thinking eyes that did not have 25 years of bias behind them. So Maria, do you want to talk just a little bit about the pilots and some of the good and some of the challenges we had come out of it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. So one of the decisions that we had made early on was that we were going to do 2 separate pilots. The first one was going to be at the end of the fall of last year, and then we wanted to transition over into early spring, winter spring of this year. And so we kind of started going down that pathway of, we knew we were going to do two separate pilot programs, and utilizing the first one to really get the kinks out. This was the first time that we were doing anything like this for the volunteers. We were kind of very much starting from scratch, in a sense, for volunteers, while being able to leverage that LDI system, which was crucial for us. So with the first pilot, we were very gung-ho, right? We wanted 30 people, and we set out to do that recruitment. And we quickly learned that that was not going to be the case. We initially actually had it scheduled for September, and due to low enrollment, we decided to push it out a month so that we could at least get a couple more folks and get more of a meaningful program resolved. So we ended up going from a goal of 30 to actually having 10 students enrolled. And a lot of these 10 came from word of mouth. They were people from our own stations, friends that we had at different stations. And it was the first weekend, the first pilot was centered on Fairfax County. And that was kind of one of those other limitations that we had in terms of recruitment. And So we had to learn and adjust, right? I think we initially planned it for 30. We now had 10. What were we going to do? How are we going to break up these groups? How are we going to have those meaningful discussions? And we just adjusted, right? I think that that's the biggest takeaway from working on this program, and that we would recommend to anybody who wants to take this on as a task for themselves. It's, you can go in with the plan, have that plan, but know that that plan may change, and just adjust based on what you have laid forth in front of you. So we started our first pilot with 10 people, and to our surprise, it was a great happy accident, as Sean has here on the slides. And the reason for that is it really gave us that ability to have, on a much smaller scale, what was going to work, what was working, what perhaps we needed to revamp when we did have a bigger class. And as Justin mentioned, how can we really work that schedule? That was one of those instances we learned 4 hours of same instruction was not the most beneficial. And so we were able to adjust for the second weekend as well as for our subsequent pilot program. And that was one of those really big takeaways of, okay, how can we take this and make it better? So that was a very happy accident. And so I will say, if you do take this on as a task and you notice that you're having a little bit less of enrollment, it's okay. Don't panic. Just adjust for those smaller numbers, and it makes it a lot more worthwhile. It also gave us the opportunity to really connect with those 10 students, and it gave a much greater opportunity for the 10 students amongst themselves to connect, because they were our guinea pigs. They had that ability to kind of share something that nobody else within our county had. And I know to this day, a lot of the people in that class still talk to each other. We ride on ambulances together and things like that. So that was our first big learning lesson. It's okay that something did not go as planned, and we adjusted. So fast forward to our February session, we ended up getting our 30 folks. We set that bar high that we wanted 30, and we did. And one of the biggest things that we learned from that enrollment period was word of mouth. You can send a ton of emails, you can send a ton of social media, but nothing beats word of mouth. And one of our biggest leveraging points was our first 10 students that had gone through the program. They reached out to some of their friends within their stations at different stations and really gave this more life. And so that was another great way for us to be able to register folks. We also had the ability to invite people from other areas, expanding it not just from Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, but we expanded to a regional program. And that in of itself was extremely helpful and beneficial for multiple reasons, because I think, as Sean said, Fairfax is very unique. And we had the opportunity to learn how things work at other regions and how things work just right down 2 hours from where we are. And again, similarly with those 30 folks, I know that to this day, a lot of them still talk. So that was our biggest things. It's, don't be afraid if things change. That happens. Just be willing to adjust. Take stuff that you've learned from, for us, from the first pilot. How can we revamp our schedule? How can we revamp some of the things that we've done to make it more beneficial? And again, word of mouth. That was our biggest piece to go from 10 to 30. One other really big thing we learned in the second weekend was we needed more people. We needed more hands to help us out. We had tripled the number of students, and the first weekend we had the opportunity to bring back some of our 10 original students who came and helped us out. And that was very beneficial, because it also allowed the students to see what else can I move forward? How else can I help this program expand, not just from taking this class? So those were our two pilots. Both, while very different pilots, were extremely successful. And I know we'll hear from Allie on some of her experiences, both as a student as well as coming back and helping out. And really the biggest takeaway I would say is be willing to learn and adjust. Things happen. And as we'll hear later on in our webinar, something did happen that first weekend of the second session. And we really had to adapt and revamp kind of some of the stuff that we were doing just to work around what was happening within our surrounding counties.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria. So next we're going to hear from Allie. Allie LeBove has been with us for 2 years now. Again, another set of good eyes without the history, if you will. But she has come in very quickly into the department and into the county. She serves as secretary of both the fire department and the Fire and Rescue Association, and is not afraid to take me as the chief aside and go, no, you need to go over here, not over there. So very much appreciate that. But she was in the first cohort and then came back and helped with the second cohort. So Allie, tell us about how that went.
Absolutely. So I got to benefit by just being a participant. So all of the running around and concerns that the rest of the presenters here had going into the happy accident, as they call it, we didn't know any of that. It went highly smoothly as far as we were concerned. I also got to benefit from the fact that I am a member at a station with people like Sean and Maria here, because they take their jobs very seriously and they create opportunities for volunteers and advocate for volunteers in a way that a lot of other volunteer stations do not or cannot. So one of the volunteer opportunities that they brought to one of our membership meetings last summer was this leadership program. They introduced the idea of sort of a leadership symposium specifically for fire and rescue volunteers. At the time, I didn't realize it was kind of one of the first of its kind, and it was intended to mimic the career staff's long-held and highly regarded leadership conference. For its inaugural session, it was billed as an in-depth training in the kind of leadership skills, real-life scenarios, and thoughtful situational analysis that would benefit any departmental leadership. But what made the program unique was that it was specifically geared towards volunteers. Understandably, much of the training and literature out there regarding fire and rescue operations pertains to those in full-time employ. But as we are fortunately situated within a very volunteer-friendly and volunteer-rich region, intelligent people like the other presenters here recognized the need for more formalized and purposeful leadership preparation within the volunteer system. As I am particularly interested in leadership roles and to grow my knowledge of all things fire and rescue, I jumped at the opportunity and became a participant in the pilot program in November of last year. As Chief Green mentioned, we were told that it would be an intensive residential seminar held over 2 weekends at the National Conference Center in Leesburg, and to expect full days packed with lectures, scenarios, and relevant team building activities. And to say that the days were full is a substantial understatement. In looking back at the schedules that I did keep, the agendas began at 6 a.m. and ended at 10 p.m. with encouraged networking events afterwards. But concerns of our stamina aside, my cohorts and I learned that it wasn't just going to be any typical dry seminar. In addition to the camaraderie built in the hallways and at the dining table, again, as Chief Green mentioned, it was jam-packed with highly esteemed and captivating presenters and topics. We learned about the history of volunteer fire and rescue, the kind of psychological contracts we make as leaders. We discussed attributes of effective leaders and their real-world examples. And we even dug into our own individual motives for wanting to lead and how our individual approaches to command, communication, chaos, and conflict resolution played a role in our lives and our leadership styles. Again, one of the key themes running through the program was that it was specifically was what it specifically means to be a volunteer leader, as the constituency and public perception of a volunteer fire department can be quite different from the career side. We discussed the critical need to identify, train, and support leaders in the volunteer ranks to help fill in the public's knowledge gaps, create lasting relationships with the wider community, and keep an eye towards the future, not just of the particulars of fire and rescue operations, but also of establishing our indissoluble place within the overall field of service. Maria mentioned that those of us in the pilot program still keep in close contact, and that's absolutely true. Having spoken with each of them about the program, I can report with great confidence that everyone walked away with tangible goals for themselves and the progress of their departments, as well as a strong interest in keeping the program going. So much so that after recounting our experience to our respective stations, as Maria mentioned, the next VLP session saw the participant numbers triple. I was fortunate enough to attend that second session as a helper and witness several things. A much larger participant group that resulted in a much greater scope of discussion, considerable logistical improvements, as I learned, and a participant group that felt, as we did, that the exhaustive weekends away from our work and families was well worth it. I walked away from the first session with a notebook full of excellent advice from the many speakers and helpful reminders of my true motivations for wanting to lead. I then left the second session with a greater appreciation of the challenges and required adaptability of being a volunteer leader. To me, VLP is a very strong step in the right direction for the volunteer fire and rescue system. I feel that it helps to legitimize our role as co-leaders in the services we offer to our communities and establish a valuable path for those interested in growing their influence and helping steer the ship at all levels. We can only thrive and survive if we put forth similar resources and effort as the career staff to grow our leadership profile. And by more effectively utilizing and investing in our members' highly diverse life and leadership experience with tools like VLP, we can better understand, systematize, explain, and tackle the issues that threaten the volunteers' existence. So that was my experience. We had a very good time. The residential aspect was critical. It made it a heck of a lot more fun. It built that camaraderie, and none of that would have been possible with several day sessions of here and there broken up. So
thank you, Allie. And I think that's the residential piece of this is a little bit of the fantasy land for us. Okay. And we were fortunate. We had federal dollars. We had a SAFER grant to go do this with. And I'm sure that everyone else on the webinar could go get SAFER dollars to go do similar things. But it does become the pinch point on the expense behind it is the residential piece. But it, as Allie said, it makes a difference. I put these photographs in. The two of them that look like they're hamming it up, they are. I set my, for those that don't know, if you have an iPhone, people can take pictures on your iPhone without having the unlock code. And they knew this, and Dum here kept leaving his phone sitting on the table. And so people consistently, the bottom pictures from the first cohort, the top pictures from the second cohort, that we were just having fun. Okay, people really had a good time. The third picture there with the two blindfolded gentlemen is from the team building on the first night, the very first night of the first weekend. But the group, and to the point that both Maria and Allie made, that people are still together and getting together. I'm seeing on social media that group in the top picture, a couple of them, they still go out and get together and are social and do things. I went into a training at one of our local hospitals a week ago and ran into one of the other cohort members from the first weekend, and she was just thrilled to see me. You know, it was there. People really, it really helped them, and they took a lot away from it. This is the first cohort. Lesson learned: if you have a bright yellow fire truck, don't put it into the sun and take a picture. And then this photograph is actually the second cohort. We had the advantage. The VCOS board had our winter board meeting in conjunction with the first weekend of the second cohort. That gave an exposure to that cohort that we can't always replicate. but it was a great experience for the cohort members. It was a great experience for the VCOS board, and a lot of good came out of that. With that, I'm going to facilitate a little bit of a conversation here amongst everybody as to kind of what they learned, and probably more around some of what worked and some challenges that were there. And I'm going to go from right to left and start with Maria based on what I got on my screen. Like, give us something that you thought really worked well.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I think the biggest thing that I will say worked the best, and I know it's been reiterated, is the residential component. I know going into it, I was a little hesitant at first. Again, this is kind of the first time we've ever done this, and as has been mentioned multiple times, that they're very long days. They're long days on top of a full-time work schedule, time away from family, but you cannot get away from that, right? And we had that ability and that opportunity to do it, and it worked so well because it did give us the opportunity to have those intense sessions of learning and then be able to just relax and get to know each other while kind of going over what we've learned. So I think that is something that worked very well and a lot better than I personally did expect. I think one of the biggest challenging pieces is this is a very big program to take on. However, it is very doable. And from a leadership perspective, don't be afraid to ask for help. I know we kind of went into the first weekend and we had about 6 to 7 people that were helping coordinate everything. In the second weekend, just given schedules, that wasn't as readily available. And obviously that did lead to some challenges because there was such a bigger class. And so kind of one of those lessons learned is it's okay to ask for that help. You have those Rolodexes. You have folks that maybe wanted to participate but didn't get the opportunity due to the amount of slots that were available. Feel free to reach out to those folks. And even if they're not actively in the classes, being in those rooms, being in those listening sessions, there's so much that you take away from that. You will still think on many weeks ahead of that.
Awesome. Allie, thoughts?
Yeah, I actually thought one of the most intimidating parts, but highly enjoyable parts of both weekends, and being on both sides of it were the scenarios. We walked through some more mundane situations and some highly controversial situations, and how each of us would respond as a leader, how we would try to get people to sit with us, to hear from us, to communicate openly. And it really opened a lot of people's eyes to their own discomforts, their own strengths, ways that they thought they were portraying themselves to others, and realizing that wasn't maybe an effective method of communication. So that was a highly valuable piece of both weekends, again, as a participant and as a moderator, really. So I thought that was a really great piece. Yeah.
Awesome. Justin?
I'd really echo both of those comments, both that Maria and Allie brought up. But what I'll build on is if you're starting this program out in your organization or your region, you're likely going to have to start with a lean staff. And that will be challenging and uncomfortable, but you may have to demonstrate this before you get that organizational buy-in to have the second one. One of the ways that we worked around that in a way is we brought in or we opened it up to really anyone, specifically the leadership in the volunteer organizations in Fairfax County of hey, if you want to come in and sit in on one of these sessions just to see what it's like, come on and do that. Well, when they got there, we're like, hey, if you have a few minutes, would you be interested in being a role player? And so that was a little bit of an ad hoc add-in that I think actually really worked and paid some dividends, because they got to see behind the curtain to see what it is, and that really helped going into the second session, and then future sessions is to getting that buy-in. One of the other things that I'll say is I spoke about the outside of the fire service, outside the region instructors. I think the LDI does something that is very similar to bringing in the VCOS board, and that is bringing in chief officers or leaders in organizations outside of your region, because firefighters, regardless of career, volunteer, whatever their status is, can be hesitant to ask questions of the big boss, to ask he or she those questions. But if you bring in somebody from Montana that's a chief officer that can then ask those questions, they're not being put on the spot. And so the participants feel more encouraged and enabled to ask those questions of, well, why are we doing it this way? Or why can't we do this? So that's one thing that I would offer.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll build off that just as a comment. In having Chief LaBelle come up from Prince William, he's speaking to this group, and he was just Tom. Okay. He's not the fire chief of a 1,600 person combination fire department. It demystifies those officers, and Maria's going to talk here in a moment a little bit about Symposium in the Sun and how you extend this. But one of the opportunities that she had and another cohort member had was at Sun, because they were with me. They got to spend time with our fire chief, with Chief Butler, who's the president of the IAFC, in a very casual forum, and came away and went, that's a very different person than the gentleman in the white shirt that I'm used to seeing over here. And so it allows that kind of connection. So that's definitely something that worked good. One other thing on the positive side that I wanted to bring up was we talked in the conversation about who's our target, who are we really looking for. And one of the challenges is that, as we all know, some of us, we have, myself that's been here for 26 years, but on the flip side, Allie hadn't been in the department just over a year, and she was willing to become our secretary. So we have folks that are in leadership positions that have very differing levels. LDI came and VFOA came from that lieutenant captain in the career department range, which is 6 to 10 years probably for most. We can't do it. We can't wait for somebody that's been in for 6 years to put them in this kind of program. On the flip side, you don't want to take the 30-year member that we had in the second cohort and not include them, because we're all going to get something from it. The flip side of that is we were flexible in the first cohort, frankly, to be able to put a 10th body in the room. We took a guy from our department who had been with us since June. He graduated college in May. He had been 6 months into his career. And we honestly said, we have no idea how this is going to turn out. And it turned out magnificently. So don't box yourself in on who you put into it. Everyone's going to get something. To the challenge side, Maria talked about the two cohorts a couple months apart. That was driven by the grant. That was driven by the fact that the money, because of COVID, the money was going to expire. It expires this fiscal year. The grant closed March 31st. We didn't have a choice. Challenge, I would never do that again. I just would never do that again. Even if you want to run these in multiple segments or multiple times, give yourself 6 to 8 months between them. We killed ourselves. I mean, we were at the point where I think the three of us and a couple others, we were all ready to just skewer each other because we're just that tired. Don't do that to yourself. So speaking of challenges, we had an unexpected event that changed everything for cohort 2. The evening of the Friday evening of the second weekend. And I'm going to turn it over to Justin to give a little bit of perspective on what happened. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we pivoted.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. In my experience being the participant in the first LDI in 2013 and then coming back for staff is that something happens somewhere throughout each session. And we often use that to our advantage to talk about and really share perspectives on. But it really came and hit home literally on Friday evening, February 16th. We were participating. I was helping facilitate one of our sessions that we do on the second weekend of the sessions. It's called Firehouse Kitchen Table. That's where my law degree comes from, the University of the Firehouse Kitchen Table. So we have a really great session regarding that. And in order to be present, I took my cell phones and I sat on them so I wouldn't be tempted to pick them up every time they vibrated. And it was like I was in electroshock therapy because it kept going off and going off. And, when we finally finished and we got together in the main classroom, I finally took a second to look at my phones. And that's when I found out the news about our incident on Silver Ridge Drive, the gas explosion that took the life of firefighter Trevor Brown. So I was immediately out of play and then pivoted and left quite candidly to go take care of matters in my career department. And then I don't really know much about what happened after that because I was focused elsewhere, but I'll let Sean take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. So, of course, to put it in perspective, we were probably 4 miles as the crow flew from the scene. Some people that were outside of the building at the time that the explosion took place, we could hear it. We were close enough to have heard it. People started to realize what was going on. The dispatch apps that we all have. I mean, that was, everyone came up to speed, and we were kind of at the natural inflection point at the end of the night. But it was a very strange feeling to be that close, to be an automatic aid agency, but it wasn't our agency. And it wasn't one that, and at the end of the day, we felt pretty confident, and it turned out to be the case that we didn't know the folks that were on the scene. But we were so close to it in so many different ways, including the fact that one of our leads had to go respond, that it really was a strange position to be in. That evening, we just let folks talk. The facility that we were at did have a house of imbibement that was on location. A large number of the folks did choose to go there, not to any excess, but just to be together and looking for updates and what was going on. Some of the other pivots, though, that we did, one of the career captains that were part of the teaching corps does a mental Mayday class for the Fire and Rescue Department, career and volunteer. He came in on Sunday. We adjusted our program to have him do a partial program of his mental Mayday on Sunday morning to the entire group. We also, one of the other career captains has a therapy dog, and I wish we were just saying before we started, wish we had a picture of George. He is a 130-pound Rottweiler that is the sweetest dog you ever meet. Brought him, and when we were doing all the rest of the networking and everything, George was there for most of the rest of the weekend. Did a great job, and one of the things that Captain Bartman said to me right after it happened was, he goes, something like this happens almost every LDI. Never this close, but something like this happens. Somebody has somebody pass away, somebody has a line of duty death, somebody has a bad accident in their jurisdiction. There's always something like this. You just don't know what it's going to be. And we could have never imagined that it was going to be literally in the backyard of where we were. Obviously for Justin, that weekend was a blur. But we pivoted, we made it work. But we also used the resources that we had to make sure that the folks that were there were okay. So I think that's really just kind of an important takeaway, that with all of these, be ready to pivot, because something's going to happen. Hopefully not as bad as a line of duty death, but something's going to happen. Be ready for it. So here into the home stretch, just some things to think about. when ideas for implementing. Regional versus single department, definitely recommend regional. And one of the reasons for that is the advantage of, quote, outsiders. So we were all Fairfax County in the happy accident of 10. In the group of 30, we had somebody from Christiansburg, Virginia, somebody from West Point, which is down towards Williamsburg, and one from Stafford, which is a couple counties south of us. The perspectives that they gave were massive, but not, I mean, we gave them a lot, but they gave our folks a lot, because here's the trick. Most people in our department just think that we're normal. They don't know any better. They don't have that worldview, and it helps give them that worldview. So just different departments, different ways. Nothing's bad. Everyone does things differently. 30,000 fire departments, 30,000 different ways of doing business. We can all learn from each other, and that's really that advantage of having it be more regional than just completely inclusive. Differing scope and scale. We talked about that. You know, maybe you do it a Saturday and overnight into Sunday, and you compact it, and that's what you do. That's the entire program. It may be a Saturday and a Sunday, and you do it for one night. You know, look at your obviously VFOA came out of the State Fire Chiefs Association here in Virginia. Very robust association, very robust program. Are there places that you can make that work? And again, think about incremental programs. We don't want to look at this as an all or nothing. You know, can we do something for a morning? Can we get somebody to come in that's going to talk for the day, open it up to folks? Those are still possibilities there. Justin, you want to talk a little bit just about the thoughts on instructors?
Yeah, I think, you know, we've already covered the importance of having those inside and outside the fire service. I think if you have the bandwidth and the capability, you develop your program first and find instructors to fit that. I think that'll ultimately, in the long run, for sustainability of programs, is more effective. But you may not have that luxury and that time availability. So I would say program first, but if it's instructors first, you know, that can work as well. Again, look outside your department, look outside the fire service, see what that is, and just real quickly back to the incremental programs. Consider starting this off small. You know, there needs to be a leadership component in the Fire One programs. You know, you're bringing in your initial training for your volunteers, whatever that looks like in your agency. Consider having a leadership component to that. You know, or we talk about followership, but also, you know, start to tease out that leadership component.
Awesome. And Maria, turn it over to you here just to kind of tie this together back to some of the bigger opportunities that are out there that people can take.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So I had a unique opportunity, especially with the first pilot program, was the weekend in between both of the VOP sessions. I actually had the opportunity to attend Symposium in the Sun, which was very eye-opening, as Sean said. I think it was an incredible opportunity to be able to learn how things work across the nation and how different and unique each individual fire department can be. And that's kind of the catapult with what we're looking with VLP, right? It's bringing those little pieces of leadership, and then where can we go from there? We have all these opportunities across the country, both through VCAS, through the State Chiefs Conferences, Fire Rescue International, and that's another great platform to be able to send your members, right? And have them take ideas from those individual sessions and see how can we bring it back to our areas. And looking at what was mentioned previously in the incremental, maybe it's just a one morning session. You can learn a lot from some of these bigger symposiums and bring that back and mold it to fit what you need and what you're looking for within your specific organization as well as within your region, and then build from there. So these were just other amazing leadership programs, and also as part of VLP specifically, that's another location where you can bring up these additional topics, additional conferences, and promote them as well, and help get your members more aware of we don't just have to do something within our area. There's national different opportunities that you can attend.
Thank you. I guess kind of in closing, thank you to everyone who participated, who's been online. Thank you to the three of you for the awesome job here, and we talk about the camaraderie. We certainly have it amongst ourselves, and have had a lot of fun doing this. At the top, I asked the question, how did you become a leader? I stand by that they're not just born, but they're grown. And it's incumbent on us to provide that opportunity for your members to grow, for your successors to grow. And this, we hope that by giving this presentation and giving you some ideas of what we've done, you can take something away to be able to do that in your own departments. And with that, Chief Buck, back to you.
All right, Sean, thank you very much. For those that are on here that maybe don't have my email or don't have Sean's email address, you want to give that to them, Sean?
Sure. It's actually, let me do this. I will put it in the chat. It's just easier to
good.
Do that. I'll do that right now.
Because, those who are attending, those who are watching, those who are listening, this can be replicated.
No.
Maybe not replicated exactly, but you have been given a good foundation for training the future leaders of the volunteer fire service. They talk about all kinds of different things. I love the hallway conversation that one of you has made a comment is that was valuable to them, or the table conversation. Don't forget to get out of the fire service. I am a big proponent of reading and listening to people outside the fire service. And so those that may think about this, State Chiefs Association looking for something to do a fire grant next year for R&R. This may be an opportunity for you to apply for. I'm sure that Sean and the Virginia people will be glad to help you. We know face-to-face is the best way to share information. No matter how good virtual is, no matter how good looking I'm not, people do not want to watch a TV screen for much more than an hour. And so this is a hands-on training program. And yes, they did get them to spend the night, which I think, just like going to the National Fire Academy, adds a lot to that. So, again, I appreciate what you've done. These four people will share their successes and their failures, what didn't work, and what they don't want you to make a similar mistake if you try this. But we know, and you all know, or you wouldn't be here, is the future of the volunteer fire service is leadership, effective, quality leadership. And so we've got to make sure that we're training our future leaders, even like it was suggested here close to the end about firefighter 1 having some type of leadership training. Let's not teach them how to answer the phone. Maybe let's teach them how to do some leadership training. So with that, I will go back and just ask any of the four presenters if you have any closing comments. All right. If not, looking into questions here, got a good friend, Joe DeWolf, from Arizona. I know that he might be calling you, Sean, to talk about doing this in Arizona. They have a great State Chiefs Association that does these kind of things and that sort of thing. And I hope that at least one of our friends, I didn't see her, she probably is here, but from Montana, this could be replicated in Montana just as well. So we'll hopefully we'll do this. And then we want to share this. Those who are attending, you will get a link. Please share this with others within your state chiefs associations, and hopefully get the word out about what this is. So with that, now if I can, as usual, then mine doesn't want to move. Get that, well, the last two slides are about the address. There you go. Get a link about the recorded session, and then you'll get a brief survey. If you need a certificate, email jmbuckman3rd@gmail.com, and we will get you a certificate. We are working on getting it so it's automatic, but with a lot of technology things, it's never easy. So we've been working on that. I thought we actually had it 6 months ago, and then I found out like a month ago, no, you don't. We don't have it. So email me, and we'll be glad to help you get a certificate, electronic certificate. So we thank you for your participation today. Be safe out there. Our thoughts and prayers to the Sterling, Virginia volunteer fire department that had the line of duty death. The V2S that had visited that fire station 2 weeks before that event. So we were there, so to speak. And so with that, I will be quiet and let our technology people sign us off. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, everyone.